Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want you all to come along with me as I take my first steps into the world of Warcrow. Now, Warcrow is Corvus Belli's first installment into the fantasy genre. So, Corvus Belli is of Infinity fame, a wildly popular sci-fi sort of cyberpunk game that's known for being really crunchy on the rules. Warcrow is meant to play somewhat similarly, however, be a streamlined experience that's easy and approachable for people to get started. Now, the big release for Warcrow this summer was the Song of the Dormant two-player introductory battle pack. Now, Warcrow's been around for roughly about a year, and the initial battle pack, Winds from the North, got phased out this summer and replaced with this, which introduces two new factions to the game. So this box is pitting the Scions of Yaldabaoth, these weird little red skin body horror elven people, and their human minions and their undead monstrosities against the nation of Feudom, which are the noble human empire that moved into the ruins of the ancient elven kingdom after their massive civil war that kind of split the world of Lindworm. Now, in addition to the two-player battle pack, there was also the Beyond Song of the Dormant expansion box. Now, if you're familiar with the Infinity product line, you'll know that these Beyond boxes pair with a two-player introductory starter box and give you an additional 3 models for each of the two factions. And then lastly, there was a special edition pre-order bonus miniature, a Syzigian, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a Feudom sort of heavy hitter special character. So today in the video, we're going to be painting all of the Feudom miniatures that come in these 3 box sets. And I want to do it in a very quick manner. I have a lot of projects on my plate. I want to be able to blaze through these as quickly as possible, but still have them look pretty good. So without further ado, before we get started, go ahead and do me a huge favor, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's dive in. So with any painting project, before I actually start putting paint on the miniature, I really like to kind of figure out what I want to do for a color scheme in my head and kind of start picking out my paints. So in going through this process for the Feudom, I went ahead and referred to the concept artwork that I'm showing on screen right now, and I really did love the blues and the yellows, as well as having that sort of true metallic armor really kind of shining through. And I think that these are things that I can execute relatively quickly. And for the couple of miniatures that have some magical effects going on, I've actually got, we'll call it an experiment that I want to try at the end of the video, so make sure you watch all the way through. But now that I kind of have my scheme that I want kind of picked out, it's time to actually pick up our brush and start putting paint on the miniature. Alright, so I started with a Zenithal Prime, just black primer all over, and then white primer from a really shallow kind of 30 to 45 degree angle from the zenith, from the top of my miniatures through my airbrush. I do this all the time. If you follow the channel, you've seen this 100 times before. And since we want to move fast, I'm starting laying down my base coats by using speed paints. So I'm starting out with 3 different types of metallic speed paints from the Army Painter. So Enchanted Steel, we're also using Polished Silver, and then Broadsword Silver on some of the different miniatures. So I really wanted our basic troops. I believe they're pronounced the Guissamier French. Ugh. But I wanted those guys to kind of have more dark, sort of unpolished armor. And then our nobles, as you kind of go up the ranks, the knights and then the priests, will have progressively lighter armor as we move up the ranks. Now, in a similar fashion, for all of the cloth that we have on these miniatures, that I want either blue, purple, green, or a really sort of dark bluish gray, we're going to turn to speed paints to get those base coats down there as well. So for the blue, I'm using Army Painter Magic Blue. And on the purple, I'm using Invocation Purple from AK Interactive's Deep Shade range. For the blue-black scabbards, that's Occultist Cloak from Army Painter. And then the green cloth is Carangis Green from Citadel's Contrast range. All right, so next up, we're going to work on all of the bits that are eventually either going to be yellow, gold, or leather. Now, coming over that grayscale Zenithal Prime with a yellow speed paint isn't going to look that great. So for these elements, we're going to turn to Yellow Shadow from the Ammo Ionic range, and we're just going to base coat all of these areas in this dark golden brown color. It's going to give us really good coverage and give us something that we can work up from so that we can get really vibrant yellow tones in our yellows and golds. And it'll also double up and work pretty well for our brown leathers as well. All right, so the next step in the process, we're going to move on to finishing off all of these leather bits that are kind of scattered around. So before we can apply our contrast paint, we need to apply some highlights first. So for that, I'm going to turn to Pro Acryl's Khaki, and this really light sort of olive drab color is going to go on all of the raised edges of all of the leather straps. And then you can also take a really fine pointed brush and draw some distressed lines and so forth, kind of coming away from your edges. Now, once we have that khaki applied, we're going to come in with Army Painter's Sand Golem and just go ahead and put a coat of this all over all of these leather straps. Now, this is going to darken down our Yellow Shadow and turn it more brown. And it's also going to slightly tint our khaki into more of a tan sort of color. But this way, we're going to keep all of our highlights. We're going to have really nice dark shadows. And then once that dries, we can come back in with the khaki and add some extreme edge highlights to really make these leather bits pop. And that brings us to the skin, where we're going to have a similar problem to the problem that we had with our yellows and our golds, in that the flesh-toned speed paints don't really look that great over a neutral Zenithal Prime. So for all of the areas of skin, which really there aren't that many, there's a couple of exposed faces and I think a hand or two, but we're going to base coat all of those areas in Pro Acryl Warm Flesh. And then once we have that base coat down and it's dried, we're going to come in with Citadel Guilliman Flesh contrast paint. Now, I don't like using this full strength. I will dilute it with just a little bit of Speed Paint Medium before I apply it. So that way it doesn't stain the higher surfaces as much. And then we can come right back in with our Warm Flesh and just add some really small highlights like on the bridge of the noses and maybe the cheeks and the forehead. And now our last area that we're going to base coat with a speed paint, it's going to be all of the wood elements, so the Guissarmiers, I painted the halves of their halberds as wood. One of our miniatures is holding a lute, so I painted that wood as well. And then also, I painted all of the exposed hair for most of the warband as brunettes. So Gargak Sur from Citadel is a great shadow color for the hair as well as a base color for the wood. So there's one last area that needs base coated, and that's going to be on our two knights from the Order of the Mace. So they have some red, sort of, I guess, part of their tabards. So we're going to layer up some red, and we're going to use Proacryl paints in order to do so. So we're going to start with black red and just get a really nice all over coat on all of these areas. And then we're going to come in with a really chunky broad highlight of red oxide, also from Proacryl. And now we want to avoid the recesses where this cloth is butting up against something else, either the armor or another layer of cloth. But we want to cover like 95% of this area to really build up that deep, rich red color. Now, after that, we're going to come in with bold pyrrole red, also from Proacryl, and we're going to do the same thing, but in a smaller area inside of our previous highlight. Just a nice, thin, smooth layer of this, bringing it all the way out to the edges. And then we're going to take that bold pyrrole red, and we're going to mix in orange red from Proacryl, 50-50, and we're going to follow that same process, only this time our highlight area is going to get smaller again, and then finally we'll hit it with a edge highlight, kind of almost stippled, of just pure orange red. In a very similar fashion for the yellows, I swapped over to the Ionic paint range. I really love the vibrancy and the coverage that I get out of their yellows. I started out with golden yellow to sort of base all of these areas, and then started progressively highlighting up through yellow, and then yellow mixed with ice yellow. Now, the ice yellow is really, really strong. You don't need that much of it mixed in. Now, for the golds, I went in with bronze to sort of base coat those areas, and then I highlighted with light bronze. And then for all of our silver armor and weapons and so forth, I went ahead and used the base layer that we had with our Speedpaint metallics, and I just added highlights with steel and then extreme highlights with silver, both of those also from Proacryl. All right, so we got all of our base coats down in record time, and even got some of our highlighting out of the way. So that gives us a little bit of time that we can spend kind of reassessing the miniature and correcting any mistakes or issues that we see. Now, the biggest issue that comes with using speed paints on smooth surfaces is that they don't always apply smoothly. So as you can see on this cloak, things are a little patchy. You kind of have dark spots where the highlights should be. The shadows don't look, as unified as they should. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So we're going to start off by applying Proacryl Sky Blue in a chunky sort of style to all of our areas of highlight. And then as an extreme highlight inside of that, we're going to come in with Proacryl White Blue. Now, to sort of blend those together, we're going to use a glaze of gray blue. And to make that, I just mixed the gray blue with a little glaze and wash medium and added a little bit of water. Thin it down, get a little bit on your brush, and then you can kind of wipe that over where you want the color. And then afterwards, I used a technique called filtering. Now, a lot of miniature painters, I haven't really seen them utilize this technique. It's really popular in the scale modeling community, but it's essentially glazing. You're going to make a glaze out of your midtone. So for me, that was mixing blue with sky blue to achieve a tone that I was kind of happy with, kind of in between the darkest shadow of magic blue and my white blue extreme highlight. And we make a glaze out of that, and then we apply it to the entire blue area. And this is going to pull our shadows up toward our midtone and pull our highlights down toward the midtone all at the same time. So you don't have to worry about glazing, one color and blending that into a different color. You can just use this one glaze all over to kind of help unify everything and hide sort of the blends. So that filtering technique is really great. I was able to use that to sort of color correct my blues as well as my purples, which were the two colors where I felt like they really, really needed the help. So from this point on, there was really not that much extra work to get these miniatures finished. Highlighting the hair was pretty much the last step of the process, and getting them all based. Now, for the basing, I used Geek Gaming Scenic's Base Ready, as I always do. But this was a new blend for me. I went ahead and used Rugged Field, and I think they turned out great. So let me go ahead and get some terrain set up. I'll take some photos for you, and I'll show you guys the minis. Oh, and before I do, that actually reminds me. So this box actually comes with absolutely everything two people need to get started with the game, including your dice, your tokens, and your terrain. Now, the armies that come in here are not full-fledged armies for the war game. It's probably roughly, I haven't done the math. Anecdotally, I'll say like half, maybe 2/3 of a force will come in the box, but there is an introductory campaign that will allow you to play a series of games between you and a friend. Now, as for the terrain, you get the Assail Borderlands Scenery Pack, which, as you can see, you get a couple of ruined buildings, a ruined tower, some 2D sort of area terrain. And now in the last battle pack, that came with the Baclia Farm Scenery Pack, where you got the farmhouse and some walls and some different area terrain. Now, the one really, really cool thing about this terrain, it's essentially thick cardboard. It's the same sort of cardboard that you get from the Infinity terrain packs. However, it's super sturdy, and this was very easy to build, whereas some people struggle with the Infinity buildings. Following the instructions, which are right on this little insert, super simple. I managed to throw together both sets in under 10 minutes. And 2 sets of terrain fits very neatly in this little tub with room for more in the future, which with 2 scenery packs, that's really all of the terrain that you actually need for this game. Any extra terrain that I eventually will get, because let's be honest, I'm going to get more terrain for this game. It will fit in here, no problem. And here are the shots of some of the finished miniatures. And video nerd alert, I learned about keyframes yesterday. So enjoy that, everyone. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with this project. I don't really paint a lot of sort of near historical fantasy miniatures. Most of my fantasy painting as you all know, has been with Conquest from Parabellum, painting crazy demons and, stuff for the Sorcerer Kings. So this was a neat little challenge, as it was something completely new to me. I almost forgot. I promised you guys an experiment at the end of this video. So what we are going to do, there are two miniatures that have sort of magical sort of effects that are modeled on the mini, and we're going to try something new, or new to me, in order to paint them. So the idea was that I wanted to paint them quickly but still have them be sort of shiny and sparkly and look magical. So my brain first went to glitter. That's right, this stuff. Now, as crazy as this may seem, I have actually put glitter on miniatures before. If you've been a longtime fan of the channel, way back when, one of my first painting videos actually for Infinity Defiance, also another Corvus Belli product, go figure. I did some Alien Worlds basing where I mixed some glitter with some medium, threw that on the base, and it looked really nice. The downside with this is the glitter flakes are actually kind of big. I didn't want them to be super large and like noticeable. I wanted something really, really fine. So I was talking about this issue with my wife, Tara, who, God bless that woman, listening to me ramble about miniatures. And as we were talking, the idea hit me, what about nail polish? Ladies use this stuff all the time. Like, you really can't see the glitter flakes, but it's kind of like shimmery. So I went out to Target, ended up getting some Sally Hansen Miracle Gel unicorn. It sounded appropriate. And it sort of got this like pearlescent, swirly kind of like blues and pinks, but it's still translucent and super, super fine glitter flakes. Now, I believe this is some sort of an enamel paint. I'm not really sure. When I read the ingredient list, there are some really, really harsh solvents that they use in here. So to be safe, I went ahead and coated the miniatures with a coat of Rust-Oleum Matte Clear, which is a really great, really hard enamel varnish. And I gave that 24 hours to fully cure in our dry, California climate before we start this. All right, so as I was painting these areas, I base coated them with Marine Mist from the Army Painter Warpaint Fanatics range, which is kind of a very light sort of blue-green color. Added in a spot of white to get some highlights, and then went ahead, enamel coated the entire mini and let that cure. The curing is very important. If your paint isn't cured, the solvents in the nail polish will absolutely destroy the paint underneath. So to get started, I just dolloped a lot of the polish onto a sheet of silicone paper, and I took an old brush that I don't care about. Thank you for your service. And I went ahead and just applied the polish to the miniature. Now, in order to get coverage that I was happy with, or the shimmer effect, I should say, that I was happy with, it took about 3 coats if anybody's trying this at home. And then if you don't want to throw your brush in the trash and you want to save it, pro tip, very quickly, you can use nail polish remover to clean the nail polish out of your brush. But yeah, so let's go ahead and see how that turned out. Well, here's the big reveal, and I actually like the way it turned out. 10 out of 10, I would do this again. So up first, we've got Verena of Altagard. I'm probably butchering her name. Probably my favorite mini out of the entire bunch that I painted here today. And then we have Ludovine from the Warcrow Adventures Kickstarter. One of the other miniatures in here, the guy with the bird, was also from the Kickstarter. I do want to just clarify he's not available in the battle packs. Knowing Corvus Belli, he probably will get a release for the war game at some point. In the Warcrow lore book, there is sort of a illusion that there will be a Falconer type unit for Feudom. So I expect that at a minimum, I'll be able to use that miniature as a proxy, even if the character does not get their own profile. But that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about the paint job down in the comments. Are you guys interested in Warcrow? Let me know that as well. And I will catch you in the next video. I've got something super secret that I'm not allowed to tell you guys about just yet, that I'll be working on for the next couple of weeks, and I think you're going to like it. So stay tuned, and I'll catch you in the next one.